Here on Current, we've been talking a lot about the chaos at Twitter since Elon Musk took over. So many changes have been made, it is really hard to keep up. And if you think it's like that for us, watching from afar, can only imagine what it's like to be one of those employees, or at this point, one of those former employees. One of the bigger, more recent stories is that Musk was telling his staff that they must commit to long hours at high intensity or leave. Here to unpack all of that, let's bring in our executive coach and psychologist, Dr. Lisa Orbe-Austin. Dr. Lisa, we've been talking about this for a while, but we really haven't gone in depth on what these employees feel like right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty stark, and I think it's really important to kind of take a look at sort of what's happening, because I do think it's reverberating through the marketplace.
So fundamentally, is there anything wrong with his approach to his employees?
Yes, it's incredibly wrong. When somebody acquires a company, they typically do not go through mass firings within weeks of taking over that company. They need to take time to do due diligence to figure out what needs to strategically change. If they're going to do layoffs, they have to make really thoughtful decisions about how that happens and how the staff that's retained sort of deals with that. So this is not a very common experience and not a very thoughtful decision-making process.
What are some of the risks that are associated with this when someone takes that hardline stance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first risk is that you're going to have massive attrition, and that attrition you can't control. So it might be essential staff that you lose, and you can't control that. And I think the other additional piece is that the staff that's remaining is going to be likely burnt out, because they're going to be taking on the roles of many, many other people, likely leading them to underperform and really, feel a sense of loss of morale, all kinds of different consequences to the remaining staff. So it's really troubling.
Now, when we talk about, bosses being hard on their employees or requiring overworking, high intensity, we've seen that before, but we haven't seen that so much when it comes to post-pandemic. Has things changed? Because a lot more people are flexible with their work schedules, and that seems to be the favorable opinion for a lot of employees.
Yeah, I mean, I think, initially with the pandemic, people wanted to retain their employees because they were very fearful about what would happen if they lost them. I think then after that, there was an employee shortage, so people were trying to also retain them, kind of not have to get into search processes. I think now with the volatility in the marketplace, the desire to please shareholders, and I think a third reason, which is that, employers have wanted to regain control of their staffs. There's been these historic layoffs that are very, very troubling.
Now, while this type of ultimatum is essentially bad management, let's call it that, it does have one clear impact, and that's putting a jolt in the culture at Twitter. What do you think is happening there when it comes to employees and their morale?
I mean, I think, not only is the morale of the employees pretty bad, but you can see how it's reverberating across the culture of Twitter. They've already lost 1 million users and I think it's really making people feel very unsafe, uncertain about the future of Twitter and what it means. And so I do think it really has had really quick, really fast impact. And I think people are concerned.
Let me get your take on this mass exodus of Twitter's, most recently, their security and privacy leaders.
Yeah, I mean, the reporting is that Elon Musk was really clear about the fact that he might make unilateral decisions, and he might not, do that with the, information from his senior staff. And so I do think that puts compliance risk, security people, privacy people at risk, because they're dealing with compliance and regulation issues. And they sometimes can affect their reputation as professionals, and also they can have personal liability and risk for them. So I do think their decisions to kind of depart really sort of signal, their discomfort with the way that Elon Musk is handling sort of regulation and compliance issues.
Now, Dr. Lisa, I have one last question, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you were to say, based on this projection of what we've seen in such a short amount of time, when do you think things will settle? When will people or whoever he hires come back and have a solid platform?
I mean, I think he has to do something to shift the narrative that he's solely in control and there's nobody else that can do anything about it, and that he's going to actually care for his employees and care for the future of Twitter. So I do think it really is going to take a shift in his narrative. And if it doesn't shift, my guess is that it doesn't look good for Twitter.
Yeah, that we will be talking about this for probably a long time, Dr. Lisa.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. You guys check out her on Instagram at Dr. Lisa Orbe-Austin, at Dr. Orbe-Austin. She also has a book coming out next month that we are going to talk about. It's called The Unstoppable Greatness.